right. What remains, having not heard the news, still fighting the war, is the part of the conservative media that no one bothers trying to reach. People like the commentator Ann Coulter, who you see on the right side of your screen, and the internet conspiracy theory guy Glenn Beck, who you see on the left side of your screen, now heard daily comparing immigration reform to the Klan. The Klan? Yes, the Klan. As in Ku Klux Klan? Yes, that Klan. When you subtract the relative mainstream from the argument, even if it is only as mainstream as Fox News, what remains is Crazy Town. And it is Crazy Town on the right that is leading the media charge against immigration reform. The more normal part of the conservative media world has been sort of brought over to the other side. The same kind of cleaving between the mainstream right and the way far kooky right is happening not just in the media side of this stuff, but also in the raw politics. In South Carolina, Senator Lindsey Graham, a few weeks back, faced this ad airing in his home state attacking him for supporting reform. The ads ran on TV across the state of South Carolina. You can see here that the ad is paid for by a group called Numbers USA. They were founded by a man named Roy Beck, who describes himself as an expert on sprawl and global population. But you can also find Roy Beck and Numbers USA here on the site of something called the American Renaissance, urging people to run to their phones and call Congress to stop immigration reform. He's using American Renaissance to reach his audience, which makes sense because American Renaissance is the kind of place where you can explore, quote, opportunities for white advocates. It's a place where races are more different than previously thought, and they do not mean that in a good way. According to the founder of American Renaissance, the races are different. Blacks and whites are different. When blacks are left entirely to their own devices, Western civilization, any kind of civilization, disappears. White panic. Everybody freak out. Now that Fox News has essentially called a truce on immigration reform, that kind of neo-Nazi, race purity, white supremacist claptrap peddler is where the rump opposition on this issue has really hunkered down. Last month, another group with ties to American Renaissance launched a new ad against Senator Graham. About 5 minutes later, the website BuzzFeed reported on the group's other warnings, like the one against the war on white America and the war on white heritage. Same thing happened with the Conservative Heritage Foundation in May. The Heritage Foundation is supposed to be a mainstream, respected conservative think tank, leading the conservative push against immigration reform. Well, the Heritage Foundation last month produced a report that said immigration reform is going to cost the country $6 trillion. The Heritage Report, co-authored by this senior policy analyst, a senior staffer at the Heritage Foundation. The Washington Post dug up his graduate school thesis in which he writes that the average IQ of immigrants in the United States is substantially lower than that of the white native population, and the difference is likely to persist over several generations. The consequences are a lack of socioeconomic assimilation among low IQ immigrant groups and more underclass behavior. So according to this guy's theory is that not only do white people have higher IQ than this immigrant underclass that we're stuck with as a nation, but native white people will always be superior to the non-native white people because it sticks, this difference between us as humans, generation after generation, it sticks. Somehow, despite hiring that guy as a senior staffer, the Heritage Foundation says they never read those words from their senior policy analyst. They also managed not to see their new senior staffer writing, quote, Hispanics are in fact substantially more likely than whites to commit serious crimes. He was writing that for the same Aryan nation, supremacy of the races, duckweed-covered backwater of the interwebs that published a piece for Holocaust Remembrance Day that showed a pile of dead bodies from the Holocaust and then said, quote, I can't believe it's crept up on me again. Today I discovered that today is Holocaust Memorial Day and I'm fresh out of onions. That is where the Heritage Foundation found their senior policy analyst to present their anti-immigration reform policy report to the American public. Also, the Congressional Budget Office has now studied the immigration reform bill at the request of Republicans in Congress, and it turns out white supremacist guy can't count. Yeah, shocker. Turns out that the Republicans, at the request of the Republicans in Congress, CBO has found that not only would reform not cost the country $6 trillion, as Heritage's white people are better guy claimed, CBO says reform would save us $700 billion. Save us that money, not cost us that money. And that is just how the anti-immigration groups are faring right now inside the Beltway in D.C. on the sort of neo-country club end of anti-immigrant politics. The rougher side, though, the sort of leading bloody edge of the anti-immigrant movement, has never been in D.C. It's always been folks like these, the self-proclaimed vigilantes of the border, guys who dress up in camo and desert pants and stuff, plunge off into the desert looking for somebody to round up. The leader of the posse that you see here is a man named J.T. Reddy, a founder of something he tried to make sound official by calling it the U.S. Border Guard, but it was just his thing. He was also part of the group the Minutemen. You can see him here in his Nazi uniform. Not Halloween. And here he is at an anti-immigration rally in his home state of Arizona. J.T. Reddy, border vigilante and neo-Nazi. And political figure, actual figure in actual Arizona anti-immigrant politics, being applauded here by his friend, Republican Arizona State Senator Russell Pierce. The Phoenix New-Times chronicled this political collaboration between J.T. Reddy and Senator Pierce right up until the time when J.T. Reddy killed himself and 4 other people. He shot 4 people dead and then turned the gun on himself just over a year ago at his home in Gilbert, Arizona. But before he met that very bad end and took all those other innocent people with him, J.T. Reddy was just another anti-immigration guy with camouflage gear and a Nazi suit for special occasions and regular clothes that he could wear to anti-immigrant rallies where he could be applauded by mainstream anti-immigrant officials in conservative politics. The Arizona bill that Russell Pierce and those guys tried to pass and did succeed in passing was known as the Papers, Please law. Last year, that pioneering experiment in state-mandated racial profiling was largely struck down by the U.S. Supreme Court. The author of that bill, JT's pal, Russell Pierce, then got turfed out of his job in the Arizona State Senate. Mr. Pierce got recalled by the voters in his district, the first lawmaker in state history to suffer that humiliation in Arizona. He was kind of the first horseman of the nativist anti-immigrant movement in Arizona, and he lost his job. The second horseman, you could say, is, of course, Sheriff Joe Arpaio, the very long arm of the law in Maricopa County. Last month, the federal judge ruled that Joe Arpaio's office had engaged in racial profiling against Latinos. Back in 2008, Sheriff Arpaio spoke at a meeting of the Minuteman Civil Defense Corps. He was a special guest speaker, joked about the pink underwear that he makes prisoners wear, and when he finished talking, the founder of the Minuteman Civil Defense Corps walked over and awarded him a Minuteman Civil Defense Corps plaque of appreciation. Then the Minuteman founder guy told the crowd that he himself would soon be meeting with Russell Pierce to write some new bills for Arizona. You can see the same founder of the Minuteman Civil Defense Corps here. I think we've got a newer photo of him. This is his mugshot. He was arrested yesterday in Phoenix and accused of sexual misconduct with 3 girls under the age of 10. Founder of the Minuteman Civil Defense Corps. The anti-immigrant groups in this country are having a really bad day, having a really bad time of it. And with the